Yo, what is going on, everybody? Dan Tramte here, and welcome back to my tutorial series, making a score follower video. This is part 2 of this series. Previously, I walked through the score follower style guide, and now that you know that, I'm going to show you my video production workflow. I personally use Final Cut Pro, so I'm on Mac OS 10 or OS X or whatever you call it. If you don't have that and you have Adobe Premiere, do not worry. Another director will be making a similar tutorial using Adobe Premiere. So watch that one instead of this one. Again, this series is primarily a resource for the video production team, but I hope that it's also useful for anyone who is interested, especially those of you who have made requests for this tutorial. All right, let's get started. First thing we want to do is we want to obtain materials. We need a PDF of the score and an audio file of the work. Now, if you're on the team, you can access those materials by going to our video production queue list spreadsheet, which you'd have access to on our private Discord channel. As you can see, I've bookmarked it here. If you're on the team, I recommend you do that as well. So it's just a click away. We're not going to go to it right now. I don't want to show it on this screen because there's some private information. Once you obtain those materials, what I typically do is I'll open up an Automator script that our director, Zach Thomas, built a few years ago. And again, if you're a team member, you can access this tool by going in the pinned messages of our Discord production channel. Now, what this tool does is it takes a PDF as an input, and then it renders the PDF pages into individual images. I use these settings. Notably, I render to PNG files rather than JPEGs, and I set the resolution to 350 dpi, that's dots per inch. So these images will end up in a folder that you can name here. So we'll call this, I guess, DI plus. And then you can hit run, select the PDF, and then wait a few seconds. And when it's done, you'll have a folder filled with individual images. Now you're ready to launch Final Cut Pro. Make sure your Libraries tab is open over here. And somewhere in this blank space or on the library itself, go ahead and right-click and create a new event. Or, of course, you can hit the hotkey Option N. Now you can give it a name. We'll give it DI plus and make sure to create or check create new project. Use these settings 1080p 1920 by 1080 and use a nice low frame rate. You could use 30 or 23 even. We'll just keep it at 30 and these settings should work. Now press OK. Go locate your project and give it a name. We'll call it DA+. Now I'm going to find the folder containing the images we just generated, hit Command A to select all, and drag and drop them into our timeline. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and grab our audio as well. I'm going to place it wherever the first page of music is, so we'll attach it to there, and then grab all of our preliminary pages and put it at the end. We need to add a white background, and we'll do that by going to the Titles and Generators tab, go to Solids down here, and we're going to grab the grayscale generator, drag it under our clips, and go ahead and stretch that to the duration of the audio. I'm going to zoom out by hitting Command minus, and then zoom back in. This sound is really annoying, so during this stage, I usually select the audio and press V so it doesn't make any noise. V will just mute it. You can do it to individual clips as well. But yeah, we'll just mute the audio. And going back to the grayscale, we don't want it to look gray. Actually, we want to go to this tab, Show Generator Inspector, and then hit 100% so that it is white. Right now, all of the clips are by default 4 seconds in duration, and they're eventually going to all be a lot longer, and I just want to get them a little closer to what they'll actually be. So I'm going to select all of the clips that are pages of the actual music, so not the preliminary stuff, And I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D, and you'll see we have this little 4800. I'm going to go ahead and hit 6000. So each one of these will be a minute long. Now when I zoom out, it's closer to the duration of the entire video. All right, now is the super tedious part, and I'm sorry about this, but as you'll see, each one of these clips, you'll see there are 3 systems per page, right? So we want to have, instead of 3 systems per page, we want to have 1 system per clip. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in kind of far, and I'm going to hit B to bring up my blade tool, and I'm going to make 2 incisions in this first clip so that we have 3 clips, 1 per system. Now I'm going to grab the first one and hit Shift C, which is going to bring up my trim box. And I'm going to go ahead, you can adjust the trim box here, or you can grab it over here, which can be a little more accurate. And you're going to get as close as possible so as to, display all the relevant information in our first system, but not have things bleed over from other systems. I think I did okay with that. Let me hit crop and then hit enter, and you'll see, yes, I was really close. I might have cut off a couple pixels, so I can probably bring this down a little bit. So say 3, 9, 2, 5 or something. Yeah, that's probably a little better. Now we're going to do the same thing with this second clip. I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift C, which brings up my trim box. Go ahead and, adjust the size of it. Let's see, something like that. Hit crop, hit enter, and then pull back to make sure it looks good. We're going to have to get rid of this system divider, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Let's just quickly finish up the first page by cropping the rest of it out. Crop, boom, and pull out like so. And notice that when I say pull out or zoom in, I'm actually grabbing the scale and just moving it up and down. And I also adjust the Y position just by grabbing it here. And that looks great. All right. And repeat the process over and over. Again, pull up your blade tool, make 2 incisions in the next page. Hit A to bring back your cursor, your arrow cursor, and then rinse and repeat. And at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and speed myself up. Everything is starting to look fabulous, but I definitely want to get rid of our system dividers, and there was at least one spot where we had some leakage from another system. In order to contain this dynamic marking over here, I had to set my crop box such that it also contained this rehearsal marker over here. Now, in order to get rid of that, we're going to go up here, click Show the Color Inspector, hit this drop down menu, hit color board, hit this thing, add a shape mask, go to exposure, and crank up this knob so our shadows are all the way up. And then you have this mask that you can move around and cover things up with. So we can do that by resizing it and placing it over our unwanted things. like so. I completely recognize that there were like a million steps in the process just to cover up that system leak, but I promise you can get really fast at it if you create a few keyboard shortcuts and you just keep the color board open. For example, just watch, I can just hit that to add the correction, hit this, add shade, boom, and then cover it up like so. And then do it again over here for this one. And it's pretty quick if you get the hang of it. Now I'm going to speed myself up and cover up all of our system dividers and system leaks, and I'll see you when I'm done. Alright, we are very deep into making this video and we still have yet to actually follow the score. So we're going to do that now. First of all, I just want to expand the duration of these clips because I like, while I'm doing this part, I like to have them be longer than the duration of the audio. And then let's unmute the audio by pressing V, go to the beginning and hit the space bar and start following. And once you find the spot where you want to make the page turn, go ahead and get your blade tool out by pressing B and slicing it right at where the cursor is at. Hit A to bring your cursor back and get rid of that extra clip. Now I created my own hotkey so that when I hit it, it truncates everything to the right of where my cursor is. And then, so it makes it really fast for me. At some point, I should definitely share all of my hotkeys that I've made for this process. But until then, you can, of course, use the blade tool and delete things, or you can go ahead and just set your cursor where you want it. Make sure snapping is engaged over here, and then go ahead and drag the end to meet the cursor. All right, I'm gonna grind this out and I'll see you when I'm done. Okay, so the piece is officially followed. It took me about 24 minutes to follow this 15-minute piece, which is kind of on the longer end, and that is because this piece, to be frank, was a bit of a pain. And I'm allowed to say that because it's my piece, all right? So there were these points where there were repeats that straddle the page turn, and I typically use this technique where I put a mask on the parts where I don't want viewers' eyes to go to, because it can get a little confusing toggling back and forth between two adjacent pages with repeat signs. So it's just kind of directing the viewer's attention to where they're supposed to be looking. And there were also these vamping sort of improv sections that it didn't make sense to display in sequence, so I just kind of stacked them back up to how they were basically when before I started cropping. So yeah, it was really annoying, but for the parts that weren't annoying, I could basically make the edits in real time, like just pressing play and then just hitting my key command to make the cut and truncate the rest. And so some of these actually take as long as the piece is, maybe just a tiny bit longer to follow. Now I just want to zoom in on the preliminary notes and title page and all of that stuff. Notice that first of all, they're at the end of the video, as I mentioned before. Each one of these clips is 4 seconds long. So, and there's 6 of them, I guess. So if I stretch this out, it'll be 24 additional seconds. And if you remember from the previous video, the whole ending sequence should be somewhere between 4 seconds and 20 seconds. So we actually want to shrink these. I'm just going to grab them all, hit Control D, and make each of them 300 seconds. And we'll just go ahead and shrink it to there. Okay. And now, if you remember, we need to leave white space on the right side. So I'm just going to grab all of these and go over here and shift them left on the x-axis. So just make sure nothing got cut out. No, everything is good. You know, I might zoom in a little bit, but actually this looks pretty good. Now, this is not a follow my score video. This is just a random one. But if it was, you would want to put a follow my score slide at the beginning. You could get that in the Discord channel, as I've mentioned before. I'm just going to grab it from another project that I know it's in. Yeah, right here. Grab that, put it right at the beginning. Let's zoom in on that. And just make sure it's about 3 seconds long. So I'll put it right there. There we go. And we're done. Now I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this, and we're going to render this thing out by hitting Command E. And I'll go to settings just to show you what I use. Yours might default to Apple ProRes video codec. I would use H.264 because Apple ProRes, you're going to have videos that are like 8 gigabytes when they don't really need to be 8 gigabytes. So this is a standard compression that is kind of reasonable for our purposes. And then you're going to hit next, name it, you know, with score or whatever, and hit enter. And you are done. And that's pretty much it. There's not that much to it. I suppose I'm skipping over a few things, like, for example, if you had a piece with a tall score and you wanted to display them side by side. But I'm sure you can already imagine how to do that. I mean, you just take these clips and stack them up like I have here, you know, and then go to the transform and move the X, or, you know, decrease the X on one of them, and then go to the transform on the other and increase the X on that one. And, you know, of course we need to play with the Y values as well in this case, but that's what you would do. I'm going to undo out of that. And, you know, I want to also show one thing that comes up a lot. It's not really needed in this particular piece, but sometimes when the ink seems really thin and it doesn't really display clearly, I select the entire project, hit Option G to make a compound click. You can name it or just hit enter. And so now we have the entire project in one clip. And then what I will do is I'll go to the color inspector and go to exposure, and then just bring down the shadows, and you can see it's starting to look clearer. Bring down the grays or midtones or whatever, and usually I don't go much lower than this, and everything will kind of display a little darker and it'll pop a little more. But that's everything, I think. Thank you for those of you who are on the team, and I hope this was helpful for anybody who is interested in the process.